Aegislash is one of my favourite Pokemon to play inside of Pokemon Unite. So today I'll be telling you everything you need to know about this Pokemon, ranging from its moves, builds, items and emblems, along with some extra bonus tips and a gameplay example for you at the end. As always, these guides come from polls in the community tab, so if you'd like to see your Pokemon in the guide next time, let me know and I'll put it in the next poll. Of course, going straight in with the central mechanic that makes Aegislash what it is, the ability of Aegislash, Stance Change. It will change into Blade form whenever it uses an ability that directly attacks the opponent. Those moves that are included being Sacred Sword, Shadow Claw, Shadow Sneak, and the Unite move. Being in the Blade form gives it a higher attack along with a 5% move speed and 20% auto attack speed buffs. The Shield form, activated by Iron Defense, Wide Guard and Iron Head, increases defenses and decreases auto attack speed by 20%. And finally, when the stance is changed, the move speed and auto attack speed are increased by an additional 15% for 3.5 seconds. Honedge and Doublade have the ability No Guard, which just means that they don't get the stat benefits from the stance change, since of course they cannot change stances, and they will have the same auto attacks as Aegislash does in its Blade form. The auto attack is quite interesting. The flashy boosted attack that you have likely seen before is activated by using your other abilities. These will be stacked higher and higher until you use your next boosted attack. Another thing I'd like to mention is that in Blade form you also do 8.5% damage based on the enemy's HP, meaning you do more damage to higher HP opponents. This boost can be stacked up to 4 times, and of course each of these moves that I will soon explain will increase that boosted attack count by different increments each time. The first move that you should be selecting is Shadow Sneak. It will teleport you, doing a bit of damage and adding a boosted stack to your counter, meaning of course your next auto attack will be boosted. The other starting move is Iron Defense, which will block all damage from the next attack and will last 3 seconds. The first selectable move is my favourite, Sacred Sword. This does damage in a triangular area and knocks up all opponents inside the radius. Aegislash will dash forward, and this dash can go through walls as long as you are close enough. This move also does 25% defense penetration, which means the higher the defense of the enemy hit, the more bonus damage you will do. Of course, this gives an extra stack to your boosted storage and increases it by 2 if it hits a wild Pokemon instead. The other option is Shadow Claw, slashing 3 times with the final hit knocking up all opponents. Of course, this move also gives another boosted attack into the storage. One of the final 2 options is Wide Guard. This move makes Aegislash unstoppable and grants an 8.5% max HP shield for 1.2 seconds. If the shield is depleted or the move ends, it will then shove the opponents for 0.6 seconds and gives them a move speed debuff of 45% for 2 seconds. You can also get a lot of boosted stacks with this move. One is granted on use, another is if you receive damage while the move is active, and finally a third time if the enemy is pushed during the end of the move. The next move is Iron Head, which dashes and blocks the first instance of damage that Aegislash receives and will reduce the move's cooldown by 3 seconds if that happens. This move will also gain a boosted charge on use and another if any attack is blocked. Before covering the Unite move, here is what each of the upgraded versions of these moves will do for your Aegislash. The plus move of Sacred Sword will increase the attack stat by 50 for 3 seconds, which is about a 20% increase if you land the triangular portion of the attack. Shadow Claw increases crit rate by 20% for a second after the final slash. Wide Guard has a 1 second shorter cooldown, and Iron Head increases the attack by 10% for 3 seconds when the special shield blocks an attack. Finally, the Unite move, Coup de Grace. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This move is a giant unstoppable slash that hits all Pokemon within this small radius. This move also deals additional missing HP damage and gives 2 boosted charges if an opponent is knocked out. The buff for this move is a 30% move speed buff 30% cooldown reduction, and a 20% max HP shield. Of course, the cooldown reduction being a pretty massive deal, since all of your moves will grant you boost attack charges. There are really only two good builds for Aegislash right now, that being Sacred Sword Wideguard and Shadow Claw Wideguard, though of course nobody is stopping you from using Ironhead, and maybe after this video comes out it will be good again. So just make your judgment depending on what you like most. Just make sure that when you play Aegislash, probably stick to the central area. The lane is fine and definitely can work, but most good Aegislash players will know that the central area is a better choice for it, since it gets its first move as fast as possible, and Hone Edge does not really have great secure. For the items, the Excel Bracer is a great move to stack up power after a bunch of kills and assists that you get. Other common items can include Muscle Band, Razor Claw, Charging Charm, Energy Amplifier, and maybe a Scope Lens if your other items are under level. Stacking can also work on this Pokemon, but make sure you don't feed as the central Pokemon, as you are obviously going to be the highest level on your team, meaning if you feed into the enemy, you will give that XP right back to the enemy team. For your emblems, the classic 6 brown and 6 white should do perfectly well here to give that extra boost to your gameplay. Now for these extra tips to give you that extra boost to take into your games. The first of which being that you should make sure that when you're in the central, to use Shadow Sneak to jump the wall into the central area. It may not seem like much, but it will save you a lot of time and make sure that you get to your lane as fast as possible to help your allies. The next tip is to prioritize getting your level 7 as soon as possible. Aegislash gets a big power spike when it evolves and gets its second move. So if you make sure that you can get that before the other central Pokemon, you'll have a massive advantage for the rest of the game. The third thing that I can tell you is to save your boosted autos for the right moment. You don't always have to be attacking, so if it will secure a kill easier, if you just wait for your other abilities to be available, like your Wide Guard to stack up more boosted attacks for you to use in the next fight. Finally, I want you to make sure that you remember that your Wide Guard makes you immune to all stuns while it is active. So use it defensively in a pinch to ensure your survival and give you a bunch of extra boosteds so that you can fight back very well. Now, finally onto the gameplay breakdown. Of course, off the start of the game, I select Shadow Sneak and jump the wall so that I can get to the Xatu much faster. I go for the Excelgor first, since it is the Pokemon that gives you cooldown reduction, and so it is much more important than Escavalier, so that you can clear the farm much quicker. I tried to get some of the Altaria spawn, but I was unsuccessful, and so I just headed back to the central since the Excelgor had spawned again. So I got my boost once again and got ready for the Regidrago. Nobody came to contest the Regidrago, and so I used my iron defenses and made sure that I dodged all of its very powerful attacks and farmed it down so that I could take the boost myself. I head back down to get the Altaria spawn once again, this time now being able to evolve to get that power spike with my Aegislash. Skipping forward into the game a bit further, I come across my Alolan Raichu getting attacked by this Ceruledge and this Miraidon. I've stored up some of my boosted charges. I run in, unfortunately missing my Sacred Sword since it went into the Shadow Sneak type thing. I then realised that this was a 2v1, and so I had to use my Unite move to make sure that I got these kills. The Wide Guard actually saved me quite a lot here, and so I was able to get that little knockback, get those boosted attacks, and take down the Ceruledge and the Miraidon together because of how many boosted attacks I then had available. I then head up to try and help my team secure the Registeel. The Registeel is very low when I get there, and so I just dash in and make sure I can use the boosted attacks to steal the Regi from the other team. I then get caught in a Guardia Unite, but I'm able to use my Wide Guard and my X-Speed to get away from the enemy team. I then head back to the central area to grab my boosts, along with realising that I have 4 players on my team and there's 1 AI. That's quite fun. But always remember, don't quit until it's over, because you never know what will happen. Even in this scenario where I'm down a team member, we can still pull it back with the Groudon fight. Right before the Groudon fight, I sit around for a bit, since most of my damage is probably going to come from surprise attacks in this situation, and so I wait for the enemies to make a move. They in fact do make a move and start trying to rip, and so I prepare my Unite move and use it at the perfect time to steal the Groudon. With basically my whole team not at the Groudon fight, this was basically my last resort, but I managed to pull it off, and it worked out just fine in the end. Somehow, with only 4 players on the team actually playing, we did manage to win this in the end. Which of course is a great message to make sure that you remember, never give up. Don't surrender until the Groudon is dead. And even then, because you can steal the effect, don't give up at all anymore. That's it for today's video. If you like this one, I have plenty of other guides like it all on my channel that are also in the playlist on screen for you now. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.